Welcome, dear friends, to Kardec Radio and the program What is Spiritism? It is about the book by Kardec. Kardec wrote several books, starting from the Spirit's book on April 18th, 1857. And later, in 1859, he realized people wanted a summary. They wanted to be instructed more, as if they wanted to have a conversation with Kardec and receive answers. He's a wonderful educator. And with that genius mind of an educator, researcher, he compiled a book, What is Spiritism? And it's so current. It brings topics and questions, answers for the current times. It's worthwhile reading it and especially studying it. The power of a group study is so vital. Studying alone is one thing, but when we study together, there is a special element, the exchange of points of view, of the reinforcement of several insights, and the answer of many questions that we may have. So we would encourage you to get your group together and study this group. Study with us. And scholars from around the world, more than 30 of them, will be here with us in 6 months from when we started it to September. And every week we are here with you talking with friends who are dedicated to studying Spiritism in their groups. Today, we have friends from different continents, of course. Leandro Almeida is here in the same continent as me, same country in the United States of America. He's in Raleigh, North Carolina. He's going to be with us in a second. And Solomon Waters, he is in London. He's a member of the Spiritist Society of London, and he's also here with us. And we are here with you. If you want to ask questions, you can ask questions. If you want to make a comment, and bear with us, we'll be back with you. And if you want to read this chapter today, we have broken down chapter 2 in several different moments because the skeptic is talking to Kardec. Kardec is very patient, but also very firm in his love of educating minds. Today, we're talking about the origins of the Spiritist ideas and the means of communicating with spirits. It's exactly what we all want to talk about, right? Am I a medium? How do I know I am a medium? Is there a sign? Kardec addresses these questions today. And how do we communicate with spirits? Have we invented them and then these ideas came along? How did it all happen? Questions that maybe you don't have, but your loved ones do. Friends, colleagues, family members, relatives. How do we reply to these questions? Should we reply to them? In previous programs, we've come to know that Kardec says clearly, if people are not serious about it, forget it. Just leave it alone. Don't even go there. If they have a question, if it's just out of curiosity, respect their curiosity, but say, if you're curious, read it first. And Kardec repeats that recommendation throughout the book. If you want to know about it, study it first. If you want to experiment with it, study it first. But there's more to know. So let me introduce you to those who are very far away. Solomon is here with us. Thank you so much. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Vanessa?
Wonderful. It's so great to have you here. Let me ask you briefly. You're at the Spiritist Society of London. I remember when Francisca Kranz in 2010 brought me there for a talk. And it's been, 14 years. And I remember
Wow.
when they were studying the roadmap program and everything else. So how did you become acquainted with Spiritism, Saul?
Well, originally I went to Brazil. I had some pain. I had a kidney problem, and I'd heard about the Spiritist centers. So I went there and traveled around Brazil and experiencing the sort of strangeness that Brazil has to offer in the sense of these spiritist healing centers and mediumship, which was very unique for me coming from England. And it was there that people talked about Kardec, and I started reading No Solar, as it was called, Astral City now, and then starting to read the Spirits book. And I think I then read the Gospel according to Spiritism, and then I attempted the Medium's book, and back then it was a bit dense for me. It felt like I was reading a washing machine manual. I didn't even know there were this many types of mediumship. But as you progress in Spiritism, it makes a lot of sense, and you welcome every sentence and all the detail.
Yes. So being a group studying at the SSL helps, right?
Absolutely, yeah, a lot.
Yeah, because I know.
Because it's like reading the Bible, for a Christian, they don't read it and throw it over their shoulder and say, okay, I know everything. It's a dense book, and these 5 books are basically our Bible for Spiritists. So we need to keep studying them, and even you, Vanessa, you keep studying all these works by Kardec, and they always reward us, because as we grow, we need to fit them into our lives, and they're very, very useful.
I agree with you. And going to Brazil, every time I go back to Brazil, I do the same. I say that's what I say to my friends. I say I'm a spiritist rat because I go to every spiritist center. Every city I am, I find a spiritist center.
Nice.
And I go there, meet friends. I receive you say the healing in England, we call it passes, right? They have several opportunities for spiritual treatments. And I say, I tell people, spiritist centers are unique organizations on earth. There's nothing alike. The day people find out in the world that this exists and it's free, we won't have space for everybody.
Yeah, that's it.
Right? But
That's
people will find out. So that's why we have to prepare ourselves.
true.
Right?
Yeah,
Build it and they will come.
that's true too. Yeah.
All right. So let me introduce the other friend, Leandro Almeida, who is in Raleigh, North Carolina. He's here with us. He is a member and founder of the Spiritist Society of Raleigh. Thank you, Leandro, for your time, for joining us today. How are you?
I'm doing great, Vanessa. Thank you for the invitation, and very nice to be here with you and along this many other friends that have been in the program. There has been a
Right.
great series so far, and learning, like hearing this different perspectives that they bring, even though, as you said, when you read by yourself,
It's different.
yeah, we see from many different angles there that enriches it so much and facilitates our understanding as well. Similar to what I think Kardec would be open to that when you look, for example, the Spiritist Review, right, where he invited people to submit their questions and he would address those, and we learn a lot from that.
Yes. So, as you're saying, reading it. So people are watching us like, where do I read it? Go to Amazon, buy it. But it's in the phone, it's right here. You can get it in your phone, tablet, flip the page. Boom, it's right there. So easy. You can highlight, so easy to read. And you don't need to read all through because we're so anxious nowadays. We feel like, oh, but there are 500 pages or 100 pages. You don't need to finish. You just go, reflect, and do what we do. We are chopping little bits like today, 2 topics, the conversation between the skeptic and Kardec. So, when you read about Kardec explaining where do these modern spiritist ideas come from and the means of communication, what specific highlights were brought to your attention?
I think it's that the whole approach Kardec brought was basically a scientific one. He didn't start with a preconceived idea. You know, it was more that the phenomena existed, and he actually originally wanted to deconstruct it. He just assumed it was something physical, like electricity or something like this. And he brought his scientific mind, which was very large. He was a very famous educator and was very well versed in all the sciences. And I think he had started a school, so he was quite a well-known figure. So, he could be expected to bring his wealth of knowledge to this issue. And he certainly wasn't coming from the idea of, oh, I believe in spirits, so let me.
Yeah.
And people look at Spiritism and assume that this is what it's about, whereas it's the opposite. It can be defined or considered a science, even though it also has the balance of, religion in the sense of the works of Jesus Christ. But essentially everything in Spiritism is from the scientific angle. So he was really bringing to bear his methodology and looking at the phenomena and trying to evaluate what is it. So that's how he first ruled out physical causes, and then realized that he had to take on the hypothesis of maybe it's spirits, because at first they looked at other people. Could it be other people in the room? Is it living people? And that was it was seen as not possible. It didn't fit the criteria. So then he went on to looking at is it spirits, because it was an intelligent cause. So it couldn't just be something random. The table was moving, rapping, all of this phenomena was occurring. So there had to be something intelligent moving the table, and they discovered the more they went on that there had to be spirits causing this. So that was what I first picked up on.
Thank you. The methodology. When you're saying this in Kardec's scientific method, it reminds me of when people say, "Oh, but how do you know spirits exist?" And I say, how do you know germs exist? You've never seen any.
That's it.
Because people discovered it, and they had special equipment, microscopes, to find out there. And then, what are the microscopes? Mediums are the microscopes. And you say, but not everybody can, get to know. But even as a scientist, you can have a microscope, but if you don't know what you're looking at, it's fruitless. I remember when I, as a neuroscientist, came to the United States through my postdoc, and my boss, he said, Vanessa, we needed to study these areas of the brain. So he got an atlas. We sat down by a microscope. He looked at it at one end, and I was at the other end, and he was explaining, do you see this area? I said, what area? I'm seeing a lot of dots. And those are cells, I know. Those are neurons, but they were stained, right? It's a method. We stained it, and we got the cell body stained. So we say, okay, those are neurons, but how do I know that those areas are these areas and the boundary with another area? So he said, over time, you're going to look back and forth, and you're going to identify. On the first day, I was skeptical. I was like, I'm never going to identify the differences of anything, the boundaries. So I don't keep on looking. Over time, I could easily tell. So the same for all of us. It requires a bit of sensitivity, reflection, and quietude to really enter this world of, beyond what the physical senses can perceive, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And I would just say one quick thing, that there are some books that even for a skeptic have to immediately impress you. For example, poetry. If several books. I mean, Chico proved his argument with one book. That's why he became famous. And Divaldo Franco, the same.
Yeah.
Anyone who writes poetry or reads poetry, read one poetry book of each of those famous mediums, and then ask, how likely is it? It's very hard to write in the style of another poet.
Yeah.
Extremely hard.
You're right. But there we are. Kardec had a methodology, he had a scientific approach to it. And Leandro, when you read about it, about the origins and the means of communication, what specifically caught your eyes?
I think, like Saul said there, uh, so he didn't start with the spirits in mind, right? And
Mhm.
in Kardec, in the introduction of the book, he mentions that Spiritism is a science of observation, and that's exactly what he does. And at first, he responds to the visitor, the skeptic, uh, saying that he could not create the spirits because of the effect, but because that would be illogical. So he first observed the effect and tried to find the cause,
Yeah.
right? And then uh, when the effects were shown to be intelligent, then he assumed to be that the cause should be also intelligent. And he mentions that the spirits themselves revealed the cause as being a spirit that was no more than a discarnate being.
Yeah, it's interesting when we're talking about this. Kardec says in this passage, as Leandro is outlining, spirits are a cause and not an effect. When we see an effect, we can look for the cause, but it's not natural to imagine a cause before having seen the effects. Quite philosophical. Thus, we couldn't conceive the idea of spirits unless there were effects that might be explained by the existence of invisible beings. So, I like when I read this, I like to stop and think about my life, our lives, because it's fruitless just to read it to know without identifying these elements in my life, in our lives. Like you said, so you went to Brazil to help yourself, beyond the physical body, because you understand that there are things that are beyond the physical body. We're multidimensional beings.
So
So we are here today in these very excerpts of the book, identifying our lives as well. Where are the causes? For example, the causes of my experiences, reincarnatory lives, right? The reincarnation, the experiences of the past, but also the influence of other spirits in my life and how I sort it out as well, how I identify these effects. And I understand that also in my life, there are many things that are happening that are not coming from the physical world. Don't you think?
definitely, yeah. I think a lot of people, will be skeptical of embracing the world of spirits completely, but they've already looked around. I mean, really, most people have an instinct. It's within us that we know. It's just the world around us is like we're in a matrix. A good film to watch to look at some of these principles of the spirit world. And the matrix is saying no, everything's material. The government will say no, we don't believe in crazy things, or spiritual things. I mean, at least overtly. There's so we'll look around and we'll say, no, it's all about having a practical life, doing the practical things. And yet there's always this hunger that people have for the spiritual, and it's throughout history and every part of the globe. So I think this is because we know our innate nature is spiritual. So like you said, we're already navigating spiritually before we even get to watching a program like this,
Mhm.
or finding spiritism. We're already picking the clues up from around ourselves. And I mean, personally, I don't even believe that anybody is not a medium. I think we're all mediums, but some of us um, don't go about convincing ourselves in the right way. We may, close our eyes and try and do something and get a few scribbles. No, I can't do it. Whereas really, it would be better to ask that person, think of how many times you were right about a hunch, about this or about that. I mean, we're all mediums because we're using our senses in in numerous different ways all the time, even from being a child all the way up to, to when you leave the body behind.
So you said something so interesting. Kardec is going to talk more about this in the means of communication, but before I get there, how many even spiritist friends come to me and say, but I'm not a medium like you, Vanessa said. Who is not a medium?
Mm.
If you get to know of yourself a little bit, you know that many things that come to your mind doesn't come from your very mind.
That's
Come
true.
from other minds. Feelings, sensations. The other day, I'll give an example. The other day, my daughter came from school. How many times I see her leaving school and a crowd of spirits come. So that's why I tell parents, I say, when you get your children from school, you need at least 2 hours. Say a prayer with them when they come home because they come and they are not alone. So this week, she comes and she is playing in her bedroom. And then the next day, she says, before she goes to school, she says, Mom, I want to be with you. I want to stay with you. I don't want to go to school. I said, why? But you're happy there, everything's well. And then immediately I see on the tent, in the tent that she created to play within, this child, the spirit of a child. And my daughter told her a million times, you're medium. Mom is medium. You're medium. That's how it is. You have to understand what to do with it. And then I didn't tell her anything that day. And I said, it's okay. You come back and then we'll be together. So I come back home and Mentor Joseph says, say a prayer and bring this kid with a group of kids in the Spiritist Center. The mediumistic meeting was going to happen that day. We're going to talk to her. The spirits came from the school. They were looking for their mom because they have a huge playground. These spirits gravitated to the playground. They came with the child. And how many of us come with these spirits with us and start feeling things we don't know, saying things we don't know why? Children cannot self-regulate like some adults do. Not all adults know how to self-regulate. So we can help them understand it. And then I told her, I said, look, when you said that, you're just a spokesperson of these children. So you need to go back, rewind the tape and see that often you're going to feel things not yours.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? And it's so natural. And it doesn't require extensive works to start perceiving the things that are off, that are coming out of our own nature. But for that, we need to know ourselves. Like Leandro, when
Yeah,
we get to know of ourselves, to know
yeah,
how.
we gotta be right. We gotta be paying attention, and we get in this rush in the day to day that we don't even stop to realize what's happening to us.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, when we do that, we can easily tell what's going on there.
Exactly. And when Kardec says about this most interesting part, the means of communication, so interesting because he started talking about spirits that are elevated, less elevated. Not every spirit is the same. And he says, observation enlightened us, not only about the moral qualities of spirits, but also their nature and what we might call their physiological state. We learned from the spirits themselves that they are very happy and others are very unhappy, that they are not separate beings of an exceptional nature, but the souls of those who used to live on earth. So we go to the book Heaven and Hell. We got to know of this. He describes this and he talks about the fact that when we communicate, we're communicating with them through our natural abilities because we're spirits. They are spirits. The only difference between them and us is that they don't have a physical body, but we both have a spiritual body that we call perispirit. And he says the key to this communication is in this perispirit. correct?
That's it.
Right? So in that passage, when he talks about how to communicate, he mentions about intuition. So what do you guys think when he says intuition, which is the ideas and thoughts that the spirit suggests to us? They suggest, but it's not like so evident. We need to know ourselves to sort it out.
Absolutely. I think the Spiritist centers, we both talked about that. That's a useful way to look at getting information, because if we're in a certain space, then the energy is going to be very different. So if we need an intuition and, we're really worried about something, maybe we want to change career or something is distressing us, it's a good time if we do gospel in the home, or if we go to the Spiritist Center, or we do, I do some online meetings with mediumship, which is, equally beneficial. Then during that meeting, at the end, doing the prayer or something, then I may ask, just one question, am I doing the right thing or something, and then you can see what intuition you get, or the spirits may send you that later. It's not necessarily going to be an immediate answer, but we're being guided as an answer to an earlier question often. So something like just finding Spiritism will be the answer to a question of what should I do with my life, or I want to feel happier, and then this comes along as a very valuable solution. And all the methodologies within, all the things we can do, like the blessed water, the laying on of hands, or the healing, all of these, gospel in the home, studying, charity where we can. Mediumship is also a charity, just being kind to people, praying for people. There's many of these methodologies which are real, they're scientific, they help, they lift us up, but we need to be navigated by our intuition as a way of developing as a spiritist as well, because it doesn't stop when we find Spiritism. It doesn't stop even when we die, because there's no death. We keep on needing to be guided, and like attracts like. So the more we study, the more we, manage our energy. I don't think protecting energy is the right term, because people say that, but really let them come if the bad spirits want to come to you, and pray for them. If they come close to you, there's a meaning, but send out the love, send out the charity, and seek out good people, seek out good situations, the Spiritist centers, and then you can develop your intuition more and more, and your spiritual faculties on all levels.
Yeah, I love when you say that. Don't shoo them away. Embrace them, because they're suffering. The bad spirits, they are just in a place of suffering, right? That's why they
Yeah,
create chaos,
that's it.
right? And the best way to protect ourselves, as you said, is emanating this light, this love
Yeah.
of embracing, right?
And sometimes it's not a quick fix, because we can hear that, with mediums who have an obsessing spirit for a while, So sometimes it's part of our development as a spirit, as a soul incarnated, to go through that process. But if we pray to Jesus Christ and we keep doing our work, things will eventually, get better.
Yes, that's so beautiful. So, Leandro, when Kardec is explaining this to us, he's saying that mediums, there are different types of mediumship, mechanical medium, he says, intuitive medium, people who are aware of what's happening, people who are not aware. Some people believe that being a medium is about allowing things to happen and you're not aware of it. That's not true. You can be an intuitive medium too. And he says the essential qualities of mediums are to be found much more in the nature of the spirits who assist them and in the communications they receive than in the means by which the communications are received. So, for example, when you decided to form the group in Raleigh,
Hmm.
whose idea was this, Leandro?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what we were just talking, right? About intuition,
Right.
to which Kardec says is the most common type of mediumship. And we go back to saying that everybody's a medium. So most of us, we have, I mean, at least all of us have this type of mediumship intuition, right? And that's why also important to remain tuned and like we mentioned prayer. So prayer is very important during the day. So also mention about being kind. So we have the opportunity to uh, exercise or to help maintain this vibration so we can uh, receive this intuition, right? And be able not only receive but be able to assimilate it. So that's an exercise because during our day a lot goes on and it's not easy to remain calm or balanced all the time.
You're right. So you had that intuition and you followed through. That's the difference. So I know, as you said, everybody has these ways and means, but usually people hear it, they don't give an ear. Like,
Mm-hmm.
for example, Saul, when you went to Brazil, not everybody who has a kidney problem is going to travel to Brazil, and many
That's
people
true.
heard of it, but something told you you should go, right?
I actually knew a friend who was psychic, and I I actually said to her, "Look," because I had trained as a therapist, and I said, "Look, this is embarrassing. I have a problem and I can't fix it." And she did crystal healing, and she would also see people, to help them with psychic stuff. And so I just asked the question, not expecting an answer, and she said, here's a book about Brazil and healing and stuff like this. And I thought, well, if I go for 3 weeks and I don't get healed, then I'll have a nice holiday. So that's what I did, and it turned out to be very valuable to find Spiritism that way. And eventually, it was a physical problem, so the doctors eventually did actually find out the cause and removed the right kidney. It was apparently that I was born with a problem kidney, apparently, so it wasn't an easy problem for the doctors to find out, but it was a way to get me to Brazil. But even with that advice, to go to Brazil, it was still a question of, is this for me? It might be expensive. I don't know what it's like there. I think before people go to Brazil, they assume it's the jungle or something really uncivilized. Is it going to be frightening? And of course, when you go to any new country, there are adjustments to make. But I just looked online and I saw only positive feedback about receiving healing and all these things. I thought, wow, if this was any company anywhere really in the world or in England, you'd never get 100% positive feedback. That convinced me. I did quite a bit of looking online, and I think that's really what you'll find with, I guess, really all spiritist centers. The feedback is going to be overwhelmingly positive because the experience is essentially a physical one. It's a real one. It's like you go in a sauna and you feel the energy.
Yeah.
There was really pretty much everybody there, really to a person, was able to feel it, even if they believed in nothing and they were a medical doctor or a scientist. I'd say, can you feel it? Is it just me?
Yeah.
No, I feel it.
Really?
So it's a tangible thing, when you encounter this type of healing, and you're with like-minded people praying and helping others. It's something that's really undeniable. So
It's
a lot of people have been to Brazil from other countries to just encounter it.
yes, and now no longer you can stay here in the US or in England, and
That's it. Yeah,
right?
that's it.
And we have it. We have the means to help out. And as Kardec is saying, it's more on the the essential qualities of mediums are to be found much more in the nature of the spirits and in the communication that they receive than in any means of receiving it. But then he says this, when the skeptic says, well, can I try it myself? It's so interesting because I know people are watching as like, okay, so if I'm a medium, can I try it? He says, certainly. I would even say that if you have been endowed with this mediumistic faculty, it would be the best way to convince you because you couldn't doubt your own good faith. But I would strongly urge you not to try out before having studied it carefully. And he talks about the difficulties, the pitfalls, the dangers. Leandro, when people come to the rally group, some people come with that type of curiosity. They want to experience it themselves.
Yeah, I think people still want to see it, right? Either to see to believe or just to see out of curiosity. And regarding like the uh, trial or study it before trying, I think is, well, I think as Kardec mentioned earlier, through observation, he found out that the spirits, they're less evolved than others, right? So this idea that we have that we die and then we may become perfect, I think this veil fell, and then people realized that we just continue to be what we are, right?
Yes.
So then we're going to be communicating with all sorts of spirits there. That's the importance of understanding the mechanisms, and also tying to what you mentioned there, being aware or not aware. We have to be in control, right? It's not the spirits that are going to take over and communicate whatever they want there. We ultimately, or the medium, is responsible to uh, filter that appropriately.
And if people are asking, how do I know I am a medium? The skeptic asks this question. And the answer that Kardec gave is priceless. I think it lifts a lot of weight from our shoulders when people come and say, well, how do I know I'm a medium? Okay, so listen to Kardec. He says, we don't know of any diagnosis for mediumship. Those we thought we had identified turned out to be worthless. Experimentation is the only way to know if one is endowed with the faculty. He talks about different features like gender, age, temperament, don't matter, men or women, anything. If mediumship were conveyed by some outward sign, this would imply that the faculty is permanent, whereas it's essentially changeable and temporary. So he saw the changes. And he says, we conclude that all spirits can communicate indiscriminately through all mediums. And that second, all mediums are capable. Not all spirits can communicate indiscriminately through all mediums. So people may come, like they came to Chico Xavier, like people would come, line up, and willing to communicate with loved ones who departed. And they would say, well, but aren't you the one through which any spirit comes? Not necessarily. Some spirits, they can't come, and they need what we call fluidic affinity. Kardec says that in the medium's book, right? The affinity. And he says here, and second, all mediums are capable of losing or having their mediumship suspended when they least expect it. I think that's fearsome for many people who think their medium's period. That's not how it works. And then he talks about serious spirits who come only to serious meetings. And I will open a parenthesis here for you, Saul and Leandro, to comment on it, because when I read this passage about serious spirits coming to serious meetings and frivolous spirits, when they come to serious meetings, they refrain from communicating, and frivolous spirits communicate more freely in frivolous meetings. It reported me to a book that is yet to be in English, but hopefully we'll work on it at Kardec Radio soon. It's a book that was dictated by Bezerra de Menezes, the renowned Spiritist doctor, through the medium Yvonne Pereira, the same medium of the book Memoirs of a Suicide. The name of the book is Dramas of Obsession, and it's a fascinating case of obsession that spiritual rescue work. And in the book, there are two main paragraphs that I think we're going to publish in the next issue of the Spiritist magazine in July. It's already translated, that piece, because Dr. Bezerra de Menezes says that a Spiritist center must be serious and not a club. We cannot get together just out of entertainment or even out of leisure. Like, well, I have free time, so I'm going there. And now I'm busy, I can't go. It changes the dynamics of study sessions, of meetings to another level. What do you think, Saul?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, at first, I don't think people, when they first go to a Spiritist center, I don't think they fully understand that it's a commitment that changes the ecology of the group. When you come, you change the ecology, and you know, and it makes a difference if you decide you're going to stay at home and watch TV and forget about it for a few months. You know, and most people don't, to be fair. Most people understand it's a valuable thing, and are only away when they're on a holiday, which is fine, of course, or if they can't come because of work or something like that. You know, a group will always have some fluidity because people have their lives, they have work, they may go away working for a while. So there will be changes, but the energy is quite different with two people, say, to 8 people, you know, because sometimes at SSL, certain times of the year, people might be back in Brazil, or it might be, you know, for whatever reason, people are away, and there might be just 2 of us, and it can still be very strong, but it's a different energy when there's like 10 people or 8 people, and they're all able to be there. So I think even in Brazil as well, you know, I've heard and seen that some people, you know, they kind of see it a bit more like a club. Yeah, let's just go there, come a little bit, and then go again, and it's seen as something to go to for just sitting there, really, and they don't really understand the importance of it, and what it's doing for them.
Yeah.
You know, it's really keeping their energy safe and strong, you know, because life can be dangerous. There are a lot of, you know, individuals, whether they have a body or not, who don't necessarily want to cause, you know, harmony in the world. So if we engage in the practices that help our energy, help keep us peaceful, and help, you know, bring the good spirits to us to work with us, then that's always beneficial.
I would love if you could write what you said about the ecology of the Spiritist Center.
Sure.
Because, you know, we could publish in the Spiritist magazine for people to understand the importance of, you know, our share in the whole. It impacts the whole thing, as you said, Saul. It's exactly what Kardec says. We really need to pay attention to that aspect and be quite serious. Yes, we are friendly, we're kind, we're together, but here at the Spirit Side of Virginia, for example, the Spirit mentor said, we don't come here to be friends. We make friends out of doing the good, but we're friends of the good. We don't come here to be friends and go to each other's house and get along and have a cup of coffee or tea just for the sake of it. We may have coffee or tea, but the goal is always on what are we doing together, maximizing the doing the good. So, um, Leandro, when you are there, I know you in your group you have been studying also the roadmap program.
Yeah.
People are being very committed. We've had a session recently here at Kardec Radio with your group. So, do you think it's hard for people to understand the serious nature of the works?
Not for the ones that remain, right? It depends. It depends on the people, because most people they want there. The first question is, do you have a posse? Do you have,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So and that demonstrates, of course, there are people that are going through a difficult time. That may
yeah,
be the first thing to help them balance. But what's really transformative is what we're looking at. It's studying it, because being there, yes, also helps us if we go frequently to remain uh, to regain balance. During the meeting, and that's temporary. But then when we start understanding why is that, that helps us make that more sustainable. And that's, I think, the importance of continuously studying all this material that's available to us.
yes. That's so interesting. And at the Spirit Side of Virginia, recently we did a survey with the attendees to get to know what they're thinking. And we had one of the question about rating the different services that we have. And it's so fascinating that at the end of the day, um, what people think is most important, the energy work, the passes, the laying on of hands. I don't blame them because when I go to Brazil, I confess that's the part that I love the most. What can I say, right?
Yeah.
When you were there, so in Brazil,
Mm,
the experience is it's hard to put into words, right?
absolutely. And there's I would almost say precocious mediumship in some people, where it's just like, wow, I had a friend and we went to Porto Alegre, and one medium just started talking about my friend's um, mother, saying, well, she won't change. She talked to me a lot about having problems with her mother, and just she didn't know this. My friend, had these problems just straight away. So, it's easy to believe when you start moving within the spiritist world a little bit, because
Yeah.
also the good spirits are with those who are working, and so even just one word here or one word there can be very useful. Yeah.
Yes, and Leandro, when you remember in 2018 when you were here for the International Spiritist Youth event, right? That
Yes.
weekend, you participated, you helped. Your daughters came as well, right?
Yes. One of my daughters.
One of
The other
them.
one was still younger. Yeah.
Yes. And then on the last day, we were all in Washington, D.C., all in the Franklin Park. And once we were there, we had this immense service in the Franklin Square Park where we had food, we had dentists doing oral screening, we had physicians checking on blood pressure and other things. And then we had the prayer and the passes tent, and it was unique because people would come in and we had the music. You participated in the music thing, right? The
Hmm.
music group,
Yeah.
people were playing and singing. And then we saw all these children and youth and adults working with these people who were in the streets in all these ways, including the energy work. And people would come and say, oh, I want to receive it. They didn't even know what it was, but they just felt like, I want to receive it.
Nice.
right? You remember that, right, Leandro?
Yeah, that was beautiful. As you were speaking, it came back to mind very clearly. I
Yeah,
remember at the end it was a very big circle, right? Or
yeah.
brain.
Oh
Yeah,
my
it was,
gosh, it was so beautiful. So people can see the pictures and the results of those days. It was like a 3-day event. If they go to spiritusyouth.org or to the Spiritist magazine, there is one whole issue you can see at the very front, the cover page, with the whole report about those days and the pictures for people to see it. And it's an invitation for all of us here. As we're closing this program, I would like to ask you for your final comments in this enthusiasm about discovering ourselves as spirits and sharing the good news that we're all immortal spirits and that those who departed continue being spirits. They are also evolving, and there is a way for us to cherish this essence in us, in the studies, in the spiritist groups, in the spiritist centers, in our daily lives. Would you like to start with your final comments, Saul?
Yeah, I think, sometimes people want to know, where am I going to be within this firmament of, spiritist people? Where am I going to have a big role? How do I fit in? And I think it's, instead of trying to be a big shot, just be good. And that will find you where you need to be. We don't all need to be on the stage. But everybody's important. If somebody says, I don't have mediumship, I tried, and
Yeah.
they're still as important, because it's a community of souls, and we care for each other, and we care for the wider community of souls on the planet, and the spirits who are with us too.
I could hear you speak all through, right? You and Leandro here. I wish we had more hours because this summary is so important for us. And we would repeat, we need to be good. And that's essentially what we need to do. Nothing else. It doesn't matter positions, projection. It's about being a spirit and sharing our essence, the divine in us, right?
yeah.
Thank you, Saul and Leandro. What would you like to say as your final comment just for today?
Yeah, I'll start from where he ended there, right? As no matter how small the work is, there's still that may be the part that we need to play, right? And that may be different at different times. And I think for us also, it's important to, as you mentioned earlier, to really study this vast material that's out there. We are now so used to this just tips and just to some videos, some short videos that we don't take the time to really study the material from beginning to end. So there are so many gaps that we can't not really connect things and have a solid base. And having that also, it's important for us in order not only to have that knowledge, but also then to be good, like you said, right? It doesn't matter if you have that knowledge, if that hasn't changed us. That's just knowledge there that has not really uh, impacted or really uh, meant anything for us, right?
It's so important to recognize the power we have in our hands to study, to be together. Togetherness is everything. We don't evolve alone, none of us. And we need to recognize this togetherness. So today we are here, Saul Waters, Leandro, and we are together with all of you to share this awareness that we're spirits and there's so much for us to know about ourselves. And as Kardec says, Spiritism is a science that studies the origin, the nature, and the destiny of spirits and their interaction with the spiritual realm, the material realm, because we're spirits. I would like to finalize by sharing with you this. 2 weeks ago, I had a quick visit in Brazil because of Mother's Day. My grandmother's turning 96. Her youngest sister was turning 80. So we went to their city in the countryside of the city of São Paulo, in a very tiny town like city of Itobi. But in that small town, our ancestors, my great great grandfather, with other families, put together a spiritist center that is more than 100 years old. I was visiting the center. And every time I go there and I visit, it's almost like a whole block. It's immense. And I think, man, in 1917, 1918, when these Italian immigrant families put together with other Brazilian families this center in a small city, it was a huge endeavor. And it's still huge for such a small town, and it's still there. But when I entered the main room, I started feeling like the history, the people who came in, and you know why they started it? Because there were relatives in both families who were experiencing illnesses that they couldn't sort out either through medicine or other religious means. They came to know of Spiritism, and through the healing of those two members of these families, they decided to cherish it and create a center, put together the headquarters that exists to date, and this made our lives different as we speak. Because if it were not for that center, I wouldn't be here today.
Beautiful.
So I say it's an obligation on our side to share. Because I don't know what it is a life without Spiritism, because I was born in a Spiritist family. So when I see people who don't know, I say, they deserve to know what I know, because it makes a difference for me. When I have a headache, I say, don't worry, it's not a cancer in your brain, because many people think like this. It's just energy I picked up at that meeting. I saw that people who aren't feeling well, or I am sorting out my emotions from many lives. And then my life is different. Like your life is different, Soul, and Leandro's life is different. I know, Leandro, your father started it all, created a center, also founded a center in Brazil, and your life is different
Yeah,
because of that, right?
definitely. Yes.
So I want to thank you so much. I know you're going to come back for another program, Saul and Leandro,
Mm,
right? I'm looking
yes.
forward to that. And thank you so much for
Same.
being with us here today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
And
Vanessa.
thank you. Thank you so much. And I want to say to everybody who is here with us, we'll keep an eye on your questions and answers. We had to pre-record it. We couldn't make it any different because of the time zone. Maybe next time we will stream twice just to give you a feeling of the interaction. But for now, we would say go read what is Spiritism. Put together a group, stimulate your group. And if your groups are in countries where Portuguese is not the main language, bring Spiritism into that language. So both realms have an opportunity to study it and change their lives. We want to thank you, friends, for this loving care. We look forward to seeing you at another program here, What's Spiritism at Kardec Radio. And thank you again, Saul and Leandro.